So what do you get then? First of all, you get quite a detailed instruction manual. You get a 24-month warranty, which you have to fill in the details either by email or send this off to Trend themselves. And you've got to do that within 28 days of purchase. You get a large steady case with a router, and you get quite a lot of accessories. That's why it's such a large case. When it first arrived, I did think, wow, why is it in such a massive case? I thought it was going to be a large plunge-based router with it being in such a big case, but it's not. It's the palm router, but you just get a lot of accessories, and I'll go through the accessories now. Here's the palm router itself then, and as you can see, I've took it out of its base. One of the main features, what I like about this palm router, is it's got a safety button here. So you can see it's got a lock and an unlock. So before you start the motor up, you have to press the unlock and then press the on switch. Now previously with my last two routers, which was a Katsu router and a Makita router, with them machines, it's a flick switch, so it toggles from left to right. And with those machines, if it accidentally gets knocked on while the machine is switched off, and then you plug it in and it's live, the bit will start spinning straight away. And that always did concern me. I always used to hold it in my hand, make sure it was in the off position, turn it on, and just make sure that it wasn't going to start up. With this, you don't need to worry about that, because you physically have to press this lock button and then the on button every time you want to start it up, which is a really good safety feature. To knock it off, all you have to do is press the off button, the on off button, and it goes straight off. So that's great. So that's the motor itself. In the kit that I received, you also get two 4-amp hour batteries. I'm using these in the palm router and the drill driver and the sander, and I've got two batteries and I swap them in and out all the time, and I'm probably charging them every couple of weeks. So 4-amp hour batteries, and they've got one of these little indicators on the back here which tells you how much charge is in there, and they take about 20-30 minutes to charge to full power. So good batteries. First two accessories we're going to look at is the plunge base and the parallel guide system for the plunge base. So the plunge base obviously does what it says in the name. It plunges down to a certain depth that you set the router to. We have some preset positions here that you can plunge down to. These come in handy when you're doing, say, a housing joint and you want to do it in 2 passes. You can plunge down to a preset position and then down to the next depth that you select. Also got a depth gauge here, and all you need to do is release this knob here and you can push that down into the set position, lock it off, and then it'll only plunge until it hits the plunge depth stop, like so. You've also got micro adjust on there as well, which is quite nice. You turn this and the little pin at the bottom just goes deeper or higher up. At the back, this is where you lock the router, the palm router, into position. And you've also got a depth stop here as well. So basically, if I want to plunge down to a manual depth and then hold the plunge base there, all I have to do is lock that into position and it'll stay nice and tight in position. We've also got 3 little knobs here which are used in conjunction with the parallel guide system, which we'll have a look at later. What else have we got? We've got a travel direction of the router when it's spinning, which is always nice to have. It just reminds you. And we've got a central locator here and on the back as well, which is nice. So it just reminds you exactly where the center of the router is when it's plunging down. So when your router bit is central here, this is also saying where it is central onto the plunge base. If you want to be getting an accurate plunge on marks on your work, you can line these up and you know that the point of the router bit is going to be in line with one of these as well. Next two accessories we're going to look at then is the fixed base here, which is what we use the majority of the time. And you may notice this is slightly larger because it has this extra plastic bit on, which most palm routers don't. And this is also one of the things that I really do like, because it gives you somewhere extra to place your thumb or your hand to pin it down nice and securely to your workpiece when you're using it. I really do find this handy. Also, you've got the catch here which locks the router into position, and you've got a nailed knob here which enables you to put another parallel guide into position like so, and you can do your housing joints and things like that. Again, we'll give a little demonstration on this later. Last couple of bits we're going to look at then, we've got a dust shroud for the plunge base. We have a dust shroud for the fixed base. This is just a pin to secure the dust shroud into position on the fixed base. You also get a spare collet, which is an 8mm collet. These come in very handy because these are the European bits, normally come in 8mm size. So every now and again you get one of these unusual bits that you can only get in 8mm. So this little collet will really come in handy. And then in the router itself, there's the 1/4 inch bit, what we generally use. You also get a spanner for changing the bits. You also get a guide bush, and you get a guide bush centering pin and cone. And again, I'll show you how to use this in a moment. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of demonstrations. I'm going to show you how to do a simple round over, and then we're going to use the plunge base, and we're going to do a housing joint, and then we're going to talk about a little bit how the dust collection works and if it's any good, because in my experience, dust collection on routers is very poor, and a lot of the time I don't even use the dust collection. I just wear a mask and clean up afterwards. But we'll have a look how this performs today. When you're placing your palm router into your plunge base, just make sure that this groove here is facing this tiny little pin, which is located here, and that just slots into position there. And then all you do is secure it down with a locking catch. To attach the parallel guide, all you need to do is loosen off on these 3 knobs, and you'll see 2 holes here, which you just guide the parallel guide through. When you get it to the desired position away from your router bit, which you'll have to measure when you're going to do a housing joint or something like that, you're going to lock it into position. I've set the router up then as if I'm going to be doing a housing joint, which I think these parallel guides work quite well for. And they can be used in conjunction with other router bits as well. Say you had a chamfer bit and it didn't have a bearing attached to the chamfer bit itself, or a round over bit or something like that, then you can use one of these as well in conjunction with that, so it just takes off the edge as well. You don't really need to use it in that manner very often, because very rarely do you get bits like that now what don't have a bearing on. Generally they have a bearing on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a housing joint. I'm just going to run along this piece of MDF. I've attached the parallel guide system. I've also attached the Hoover shop vac, and I've attached the battery, and I've set the depth that I want to plunge down to, which is about 1/3 through this 18mm MDF. I'm going to switch the shop vac on, and we're going to see how well the router performs. First thing we'll talk about is the dust extraction. As you can see, I'm not wearing a respirator, which is a bit of a no-no anyway, because I'm cutting through MDF here, but I can't see any airborne particles. There obviously is, so you should have a respirator on when you're doing it with MDF, but there was no airborne particles flying up what was visible. So dust extraction seems pretty good to me. I mean, I've never used a router with dust extraction that is actually as good as that, so I'm really happy with that. What you do get left behind though, especially when you're doing a housing joint, if Jacob brings the camera in, you get a lot of dust left actually in the channel when you're doing a housing joint, but everything that's getting lifted up and what's being pushed into the air is caught up in there in the little cyclone that spins around, and it's sucked up. So all I do after I've done that is I just disconnect the hose, and as you can see, lovely, nice cut there, everything nice and straight using the parallel guide. So that's something you can use your parallel guide for, and obviously you can adjust the depths and you can adjust the widths. You are limited of how far into a board you can go by about 200mm, I think, on that. But it's the same with all parallel guides. If you're gonna do a housing joint and not use a parallel guide, you just set up a fence with a scrap piece of wood, a straight edge. One other little thing you might have noticed as well then, guys, is when I switched the router on itself, there was a little LED light down there just shining up onto your workpiece, which is really handy to have when you're doing things like freehand routing, letters, numbers and designs, things like that. It's really nice to have that little area just lit up, because as you can imagine, it's quite difficult to see in there. So that's a really good little added bonus, what I like about the router. Next thing we're going to take a look at then is the fixed base, and we'll also add the dust extraction to that, and we'll do a round over or chamfer, somewhat along them lines. Generally, this is what you normally have attached to your palm router. Most people are using palm routers for doing roundovers and chamfers and things like that with the fixed base attached, so that's what we'll look at next. One thing I forgot to mention earlier about the router itself, it is brushless as well, which is quite a nice feature. When I first started using it, I almost felt like I didn't need to wear ear defenders, because obviously you still do, but because it was that quiet compared to my normal screaming routers. So the brushless does make a big difference. And you've also got your speed dial here, which is, you know, generic on all routers from 1 to 6. There you go then, guys, quick roundover. Dust collection on that small roundover was perfect, really. No visible MDF coming out everywhere. And again, for me, that's one of the worst things about routers normally, is the dust collection. So a little bit about the handling then. With it having a battery instead of a cable, it's a bit of a catch-22 because cables can get in your way. However, having a battery on top also makes it a bit unwieldy, i.e. it feels a bit unbalanced. But where this router itself sort of like counterbalances that is this extra part on the base here. When you're placing your router onto your workpiece, I like to hold my thumb onto that extra base there. And when you've got your dust extraction on here as well, you're in no danger of slipping your thumb into there where you've got the router bit. So that's really safe. It gives you that extra balance and that extra security. And it really negates the unbalancing of having a battery on there. When you do get a cordless palm router, I think you're going to run into, you know, feeling a little bit unbalanced anyway, no matter what brand you get, because your battery's going to be quite substantial on the top of there. The router also has a soft start. When you turn it on, as you can see, there's no jolting, and it slowly gets up to full speed, so you don't have to worry about that. It also has a brake in there as well, so this is, out of all the routers I've got, this stops the quickest, so that's a really nice thing to have. So when you stop it, you know before you've put it down, it's more or less stopped, so that's good as well. Next two accessories that we're going to look at are the guide push cone and guide push centering pin. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert the guide push pin into the collet, and we're going to lock it into position. The guide push cone is basically for centering your base and your guide bush in alignment with each other. And what you're going to do next is you're just going to pop the base back on, lock it into position, then you're going to get the guide bush in, and on top you'll see two screw holes here. You place the guide bush on, and with the supplied screws you're just going to locate that into position. Then what you're going to do is you're going to release the catch, lower the base down onto the cone. When it's in position, lock it back off. So now we've got the guide bush centering pin located here, and we've got the guide bush on the base. So what we need to do now is we need to make sure that the guide bush pin is central within the guide bush. So we can do that by undoing these 4 screws here, and when we undo these screws, you'll see that there's movement within the plate. So as you can see now, I've got some movement in there, and if I loosen them a bit more, I'll even get more so. So what I can do is I can make sure that the pin is central in the guide bush. So this pin is going to be directly central within this hole here. And then lock your screws off into position, and then you know that your router bit is going to be central within the guide bush. Now that you've got your guide bush set up correctly, you'd remove the guide bush centering pin and cone, and you'd put your straight cut bit in there, or your up spiral bit, whatever you're going to be using. And then the guide bush itself would run along your desired pattern, such as this, cutting out the shape you want. If you was doing a pattern like this, where it's an enclosed shape, you'd use the plunge base, so you can plunge down into the workpiece and then follow the desired pattern. And you can see on here how the guide bush follows the shape of whatever you're cutting out. So for an enclosed shape like that, you'd use the plunge base, and if you was doing something which is open-ended like this, you could quite happily use the fixed base like that, and then you can just run that guide bush in and out of these shapes like that. And this is for making a ruler, and as you can see, that would speed that process up no end. Jacob's just checked the price online then, and you're looking at between approximately £180 for the bare unit to approximately £250 for the full kit with all the accessories. So you've got some options there of what you want to purchase, whether you just want the bare unit or you want everything with it. One thing I did forget to mention as well, you also get the charger, so 2 batteries and a charger with this kit. In conclusion then, I'm really happy with the palm router. It's now my go-to palm router in the workshop. Use it on a daily basis. Nice little piece of kit. Obviously you can take this review with a pinch of salt, because you know I've had it given to me, and for all you know, I just want to give a good review so I can get more free tools. But if you know me in any way, shape or form, you know that I'd only give an honest review on a piece of kit that I think's decent, and I do with this. I'll put some links. I'll put a link to Trend, and I'll also put a link to my Amazon affiliate. If these are on Amazon, I'll put that link on there as well. So if you want to purchase anything off there, if you go through Trend, I won't get anything. If you go to Amazon, I might get a few pennies. Apart from that, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this was useful for you. Obviously it was just a quick review. It wasn't an in-depth look at how every part of the machine works. But if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments. I'm going to do best, and I'll do my best to get back to you. So catch you on the next one, guys. Bye.